There are the double digits of deleted scenes for House of the Dragon Season 1, and some of them honestly needed deleting. This one I'm a bit split on, but overall, I'm happy they got rid of it. I think it could have added a special emotional punch, but first, let's talk about the scene. Let's talk about the scene versus book lore, and then I want to talk about the deleted scene, and you can let me know if they should have kept it or not. So, let's talk about Aemma's childbirth scene, how accurate it was to book lore, and then the deleted scene that made it so much worse. So House of the Dragon introduced us to Viserys and his very pregnant wife, Aemma Arryn.
14 succession claims were heard, but only 2 were truly considered. Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, the king's eldest descendant, and her younger cousin, Prince Viserys Targaryen, the king's eldest male descendant.
A lovely couple that had just learned they would one day be king and queen of the Seven Kingdoms after their grandfather, King Jaehaerys I.
Prince Viserys Targaryen be made Prince of Dragonstone.
And then Viserys forced a C-section on Aemma and straight up murdered her. You know, just King Viserys things. But after he straight up betrayed his wife on every level, he got news from the Maester. He had a baby boy.
Congratulations, Your Grace. You have a son. It's a boy. A new heir, Your Grace.
Only for us to then see at the funeral the baby had died shortly after his mother. Now, I'm not saying that I like to see children die, but Viserys losing his child he butchered his wife to get... And even though I hate this scene, I hate it so much, I love how it not only is accurate to lore, but adds in a piece that was never, ever shared. So now let's read the passages from World of Ice and Fire and also Fire and Blood Volume 1 about Aemma Arryn's death during childbirth. So first, World of Ice and Fire. It's a very short blurb. It says, in 105 AC, her mother finally delivered the son that the king and queen had both longed for, but the queen died in childbirth, and the boy, named Balon, only survived her by a day. In Fire and Blood Volume 1, the lore we get about Aemma Arryn's death is a bit more robust, so here is that. Thus did matters stand in King's Landing late in the year 105 AC, when Queen Aemma was brought to bed in Maegor's holdfast and died whilst giving birth to the son that Viserys Targaryen had desired for so long. The boy, named Balon after the king's father, survived her only by a day, leaving the king and court bereft, save perhaps for Prince Daemon, who was observed in a brothel on the Street of Silk, making drunken japes with his highborn cronies about the heir for a day. When word of this got back to the king, legend says that it was the whore sitting in Daemon's lap who informed on him, but evidence suggests it was actually one of his drinking companions, a captain in the gold cloaks eager for advancement. Viserys became livid. So just going by those two passages in World of Ice and Fire and Fire and Blood Volume 1, we see that the scene we see in the show matches up quite nicely. They really didn't deviate at all from those facts, except the C-section detail. That was never put in any of the lore. That is something brand new that we learned happened in the show. And if you're thinking, Rawrist, what does that mean? Fire and Blood Volume 1 and World of Ice and Fire is written from the perspective of maesters. So even though George had it written about his world, it's written in universe like maesters did it. The Maesters, if you believe the Grand Maester conspiracy, and just in general that they're little gray rats, they're not perhaps trustworthy, they are biased, they have changed things around, and that's how we're supposed to be treating the show, according to those that work on it. World of Ice and Fire and Blood are from a perspective of the Maesters, but the show is how it actually happened, so we can start to compare and see, okay, why is this different? Why did they paint this certain character person this way when in the show we see it very different? I have some theories. The first is the author of Fire and Blood, or the fictional perspective, is a maester that was born 167 years after Aemma's death. 167 years is a long time to have records be lost, destroyed, or incorrectly copied, especially when we know how chaotic the Seven Kingdoms was in that 167 years, and the fact that there had been some violence, I would say. There were some Targaryen rebellions, some more civil wars, so it could be innocent. The information could just be lost, and given how many Targaryens have really messed up births, it wouldn't be surprising for some details to get mixed up. We even see in Fire and Blood, yeah, they had like a handful of dead babies. Some were stillbirths, some were deformed. They're kind of hazy on some details, which makes sense. A childbirth room has less people in it than, let's say, at court, where there's a lot more witnesses and a lot more people that could pass on that information. So it could be completely innocent that the C-section detail was dropped out. But I present to you the true conspiracy theory of why it's not in any of the book lore. You see, Viserys was so ashamed of what he did to his poor Aemma, the love of his life, his absolute soul-deep betrayal in her last moments of life guilted him so much that he forced the maesters and all in the room to strike any record of what happened. If Viserys heard any of them mention her C-section, they knew what he'd do.
Responsible for this gossip. I will take their eyes.
But you can decide whether you think that this detail was omitted just simply because it was lost, because maybe they didn't think it was important, although I kind of feel like it was important, but to the overall information, maybe they just didn't care. Or it could have been Viserys saying, if you tell a single soul about the greatest shame of my life, I will end you. All right, having all that information, talking about the scene in the show, talking about the lore we have in the books, now let's talk about the deleted scene, because if they would have kept in the extended deleted scene for this, it would have actually contradicted lore. According to Viserys' actor, Paddy, the childbirth scene was actually supposed to be much longer, and we were going to learn that Baelon had died right then and there. So this is what Paddy shared in an interview. What we shot was 10 times more brutal than what you saw. He was 10 times more devastated than what you saw. There was a scene that didn't make the cut where I'm sitting on the bed. There's blood on the bed, and I've got the dagger. And one of the maesters, the thing he comes to tell me actually is that Baelon hasn't lived. And so Viserys is hit with this double whack of devastation of his wife and then the kid. You know, his son. Then there was this sense of like, huh. You know, like the cruel twist of fate of like, I'm not surprised. Personally, I like it better that he got to feel a little bit of happiness before it was torn away. It makes the despair a little bit more delicious than if he hadn't even known he had a son. The maester just brought the baby over and was like, hey dude, sorry you didn't make it. But Viserys, in the scene that they kept, him seeing that he had a son and then it was alive and that little bit of joy he got, I think made it that much better. And the thing I think is so overdone in media and really probably would have taken away from that moment. So yes, the deleted extended part of the scene would have made it much more cruel in a sense that he loses his wife and then immediately after he loses his son. I think keeping it to book lore that he got to keep his kid for a day and then lost it makes it a better punishment for Viserys. Now, I definitely think they could have spiced up this scene, so just not cut from, okay, his wife has died, he learns he has a baby boy, then we see the funeral and learn, oh, wait, no, the baby boy didn't survive. I think maybe if we showed those 24 hours of Viserys having that hope, clinging to it, and slowly seeing the baby just pass away. And that's when we see him start to like claw at his hair and skin, and we finally see where the flesh-eating infection takes hold. But now it's your turn. Let me know, do you appreciate that they kept the scene in House of the Dragon pretty accurate to Fire and Blood and World of Ice and Fire? Do you like the extended deleted scene? Do you wish we would have just, I don't know, seen a baby die on screen? Like, subscribe, and let me know down below.